What is up, one and all? Welcome to a new video, a new thoughts on. Today we're talking about what may just be one of the most violent video games ever made, and one of my personal favorites of the year, Doom. Seriously, if you are a gamer and you haven't heard about this game, what are you doing with your life? If you like good shooters, if you like, violent and visceral experiences, if you like a linear game that feels content and that feels like it takes every moment of its campaign seriously, then you want to take a serious look at Doom. That's the shorthand review. But of course, I'd like to talk at length about what makes a game great, and that's what I'm going to do today with Doom. Ladies and gentlemen, these are my thoughts on Doom. I think the best way to begin a conversation about Doom is to basically start from the very beginning of the game. You hit that start new game button, you load in, and then you're strapped to a table, surrounded by demons, you break free, get a gun, and the action starts right away. I understand games that want to take time to set up their story and want to give you necessary details and exposition at the beginning. That way you have a very proper way of coming into the game. But id, when they were making this game, knew exactly what you bought the game to do, and that was to effing kill demons. So of course, they let you do that literally from the first 30 seconds of the game, and man, is it instantly satisfying. So after you find your armor and the shotgun, you go down a hall, you find a panel that says demonic invasion detected, and at that very moment, you kind of know what game this is gonna be. This is not a game that takes itself too seriously. I mean, sure, you're going from Mars to hell and back multiple times, killing demons, and it is very, very violent and graphic, and it can get pretty intense. But no stretch of the imagination, this is not a game that aims to take itself seriously. If anything, it has a very specific vision, and it executes it to the utmost perfection, in my opinion. And because of that, the game kind of basks itself in its very wacky premise. The fact that Mars has been invaded by demons. So you're going to see stuff like computers that say demonic invasion, and you're going to have Disneyland holograms that go, unlike everything else in your life, your work here matters. The game is completely oozed in its vision, and that is something so refreshing to see, because this game knows exactly what it is. Right from the very beginning, that's clear, and all the way to the end of the game, that remains a consistent aspect. From there, the first few hours of Doom are nothing but face-melting goodness. Seriously, there were so many times where I was like, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit, can this game get any better? It just got better. Can this game get any better? It just got better. And it does that over and over and over for a good majority of the game. People want to say Doom really doesn't have a story, and that's not necessarily true. It does. It's not a focus. The gameplay is certainly the king when it comes to this game, and the story is nothing that you'll walk away really going, oh, I love that part too, oh, I love that part. You're going to be lamenting like that more about the gameplay than you ever will be about the story in this game. The story, more or less, is just a simple guideline through the world. It gives you the objective, it gives you something to go towards, and it adds some momentary epicness from time to time. If you watch my Hitman review, something I said was that any game can really benefit from a story. Sometimes there's exceptions, but most of the time it's good, and Doom is definitely the case. They knew how much story the game needed. They knew not to bat you over the head with it with cinematics or anything like that, or anything too distracting. It was the perfect amount all the way through. And in retrospect, the story is probably one of my highest compliments about the game, and that's mostly because of how the story ends. I won't say anything, but it sets up very nicely for the future of this re-sequeled franchise of Doom. But of course, as I said before, with this game, gameplay is king. I think with any first-person shooter I've ever played, like especially a single-player one, there's always little compromises in the gameplay to make it more strategic, to add like a layer of strategy or tactical gameplay. For example, you can only sprint for a limited amount of time. You can only hit cover in certain cover points. All these little compromises that don't make the gameplay as fun as it could be, as balls out as it could be. And that's perfectly fine for some games, because of course, like I said, it adds a layer of strategy, it adds a layer of tactical gameplay. But what Doom smartly does is it almost completely removes all of those compromises and adds other compromises that you don't usually see in other first-person shooters. To kind of fully illustrate what I mean by this, just take a look at one combat encounter in this game. There's no sprint button. You don't really need it because you're essentially sprinting the whole time. None of your guns ever reload except for the super shotgun, but it reloads automatically after every shot. And then all the weapons have their own secondary and primary modes that you can use as well. There's a jump and a double jump, and it actually works pretty effectively when you're trying to go from surface to surface. And there's a very effective, very viable melee option known as glory kills, which I will talk about in a little bit here, all throughout the game. So what you get ultimately is a completely unchained first-person shooter experience, and holy shit, it is so much fun. To the point that the gameplay alone, they could have given me any type of enemy. They couldn't give me demons. They could have given me Teletubbies to shoot at for all I care. The shooting gameplay alone makes this game an absolute triumph. And that's largely because of those compromises it removes from the shooting gameplay. It allows the player to take full grip of what they have and just go nuts with the shooting. But of course, like I said, there were compromises made in other aspects of the gameplay. And when I say compromise, that's not a negative thing. Like I said earlier, these compromises are in place to add a layer of strategy, to add a layer of, tacticality, to make the game a little more challenging. And those compromises are usually in the environments. Now, this game has a very, very good level design. A lot of the environments end up connecting back to each other. There's a lot of secret environments, a lot of collectibles to find, all that stuff when it comes to level design. But the best thing about it is that when it comes to fighting demons and throughout the levels and the areas that you do, it allows a perfect sense of momentum. In this game, if you stop, you'll die. You have to keep moving the whole time, keep jumping, keep moving around the environment to keep shooting demons. Only once in a while will it ever feel really inconvenient to kind of move around, but for the most part, the levels almost all the way through are flawlessly designed. You can, like I said, move around the whole time, and you're gonna have to. If you stop and shoot like you might in other first-person shooter games, you're gonna effing die. In this game, you have to stay moving the entire time. Another one of those compromises is the massive enemy variety. Now, I know every shooter has enemy variety, but most FPSs don't have as great of a variety as Doom's characters do. I mean, some of these guys fly around. Some of them charge at you at full aggressive speed. Some have lasers. Some are big, blobbering guys. Some are giant eyeballs that eat you. I mean, those are graphic descriptions alone, but the way that you deal with these enemies is almost entirely different each time. Some shooters will give you a little bit of variety between the enemies. Heavy armored guy, I gotta deal with him a little bit differently than this guy. But in this game, your strategy for each one is completely different, and the satisfaction you get from killing all those enemies is equally received. The last big compromise in the gameplay to make it more challenging are the glory kills, and this is actually one of my favorite features in the entire game. Essentially, in order to get new ammo and health, the best way to do it is to weaken an enemy enough so that they can be meleeed. And these melees are brutal. I'm talking about, thumbing a demon's eyeballs out, ripping them apart at the center, pulling out a giant demon's heart and stuffing it down his throat, taking a demon's face and just completely corkscrewing it, and ripping a demon's leg off and beating him with it. There's so many. I can't even describe the amount of gore that is in this game. It is insane. Now, behind the game's amazing gameplay is this subtle upgrade system. Essentially, you have Praetor suit upgrades, which you acquire from the Praetor suits of other fallen enemies in the world, and you take your Praetor token and you can spend it to upgrade your own armor. You have weapon upgrade points, which you get from killing waves and waves of demons throughout all the levels. And then you have a lot of collectibles and challenges which can add bonuses depending on how you use them. The best section of upgrades is definitely with the weapons. These allow you to essentially max out certain attributes of your weapons that you unlock throughout the game, these secondary features you unlock. And with that, you can add certain benefits and bonuses that allow you, say, to rapid fire micro missiles with an assault rifle, or turn a chain gun into a Bastion-esque turret. There's challenges throughout the world which are pretty fun, and I really appreciate that they put these challenges in, because pacing is definitely one of the most underrated qualities about this game. How it paces you through the levels, how it knows when to give you a parkour puzzle and then interchange that with a demon fight, with a boss fight. And it does this so frequently. Part of that pacing is also these challenges that are mixed into the levels. Once in a while, you'll come across a challenge, and essentially it gives you like a unique requirement. You finish that requirement, and then you get a rune. And these runes allow you to control certain aspects of the gameplay that you couldn't control before. So get armor for glory killing enemies, be able to move better when you're in mid-air jump jetting, stuff like that. The only section of the upgrades that I feel like could have been done without are the suit upgrades, because you could probably play the whole game without upgrading any of these. And I almost did. I played this game twice now, and I barely upgraded my suit at all, because to upgrade your suit in this game, you have to go out of your way to find suit tokens, which aren't always convenient to find. They're sometimes hidden in secret areas, and they don't ever really feel compelling or worth finding. They're just kind of like a nice little thing to find, which I guess goes along with the collectibles, but I feel like if this was an essential mechanic to implement, then maybe they should have made, you know, those upgrades more worth it. You know, make the benefits even better, or just remove the system completely. Anywho, aside from the campaign, there's a lot of other stuff that Doom actually has that not a lot of people talk about. The campaign is definitely the highlight, but there's a lot of other content packed in that might just be worth playing if you want even more out of the game. There's a snap map feature which allows you, you know, when you're in the campaign, you can download the maps essentially, and then when you're in snap map, you can edit the map, put them together, you know, interchange certain parts of the map, and then you can add certain restrictions and requirements to each one. So you can have unlimited chainsaw and you know, one snap map, or you can have unlimited shotgun, or you can only use shotgun, or your weapons are all maxed out in this mode. Kill as many demons as possible. There's also an arcade mode, which is very similar to snap map in the sense that there's unique restrictions that go along with each game mode, but you just, of course, can't build the maps. They're predetermined for you. The final and probably biggest side feature this game has to offer is its multiplayer, which I feel gets an undue amount of scrutiny for not being as good as the campaign, which is very true. You know, the multiplayer in here is probably comparable to something like Call of Duty, but of course with Doom movement and shooting and a little bit of its arena style level design. But rest assured, it's actually still really fun, and it can be addicting. Yeah, it's not the best multiplayer experience out there. You know, play Titanfall 2 or play Overwatch or play Battlefield 1, just to name a few multiplayer games from this year alone, but it's still actually really fun. And of course, hey, it just tacks on more value to what is already a really awesome game. So I never saw this as an intrusion or something that I was, you know, against. It just seems like a nice add-on for everything you've got. And there's actually a lot of people playing usually. I do want to touch on a few negatives. And yes, there are a minuscule few. You can almost call them nitpicks. In fact, they might just be nitpicks. But somewhere maybe after 2/3 of the way through the campaign, the game kind of runs out of stuff to throw at you. And it really starts to show, because you get to these stretches of gameplay that feel more monotonous than maybe your first half of the game. And that's mostly because the first half of the game is easily the most exciting. That's when the game is throwing these insane enemy types at you. That's where the game keeps pushing you to your limit over and over and over. That second half of the game, that last third of the game, in some ways, is probably the longest feeling and is probably the most boring stretch of the entire game. Rest assured, this game is never boring. It's dull compared to the rest of the game. Other than that, I have no other quandaries with Doom. This game is effing fantastic. I can't emphasize that enough. It is easily one of my favorite games of the year. A fantastic shooter. I haven't talked to one person who played this all the way through and didn't really like it. I know some people who played the first level when they had it for free over the summer. They weren't really that impressed by it. They said, yeah, it's a shooter, just a little bit different. No. The first level is not the best impression you get of this game. Maybe halfway through, where the game really pushes you to the limit, you'll start to go, holy shit, I'm so glad I played this game. Doom is a brilliant ass game. I encourage everyone to go out and play it. Guaranteed you will have one hell of a time, no pun intended. So, guys, that's all I got to say about Doom. Have you played it? If so, what did you think of my thoughts on? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments below. Stay tuned to my channel for more Let's Plays coming up of Watch Dogs 2, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, and more thoughts on. My next thoughts on will either be Watch Dogs 2 or Titanfall 2. Both were actually surprisingly good games. So, yeah, that's all I got in the pipeline for now. I will be seeing you all later. Peace.